If a mad scientist were a sound engineer,
it would be
his name would be
you, Mitchell
me.
Prettyman.
Speaking of mad scientists and scientism, science, we are back on Love and Knowledge. This is now a co-hosted feature. Myself, Mitchell Prettyman, and my wife, Tejal Prettyman.
Mm-hmm. Hello.
Hi. Yes.
I'm still getting over the sound editing.
The idea is to let them hear you. Well, so we're back and we're talking about morality and sociality. Socialism?
No.
What am I looking for here? Society. There it is.
What is morality?
What is it? Why is it? Where did it come from?
How did we get here?
Where are we going with it?
The point of morality has been lost on many of us.
The point. Yeah, is it like a religious thing? Can you have it if you're not?
Does it naturally arise? Or does it only arise from instruction?
Is it intrinsic or does it arise because people agree based on objectives?
Well, a lot of people these days that you might speak to, especially I feel like when I come across very hard scientists, will say, well, without instructional morality, we'll fall into some sort of anarcho-chaotic violence.
Well, who instructed the instructors is what I'm asking.
Well, that's the thing, and that gets into...
Who were the deciders that decided?
Yeah, and the same thing, it kind of does become a little bit more of a circular argument when people say, oh, we need to rely on instructional morality, because...
Instructional meaning somebody
tells you
how to believe.
Because people will say, well, without being instructed, we're inherently violent beings, and therefore we need instruction from other humans who are inherently violent, so it doesn't make any sense. Same thing with the way that people argue about having government, because they're like, well, we need a group of people to tell us how to behave and what to do and keep us in check, because we can't be trusted, so we're going to trust other ones of us that can't be trusted to tell us what to do and keep us in check. So it's kind of circular reasoning.
And we've already moved into anarchy.
Well, we've moved into an argument that doesn't hold logical soundness.
Doesn't hold logical water.
Yeah, and so when you get away from that and you really consider what is morality and do we have it inherently, well, we do, but there needs to be certain circumstances in which it arises.
Well, what are the circumstances in which it arises?
Relational coherence.
Relational coherence. So, coherence meaning attuned to itself?
Attuned to oneself and attuned to others.
So we're tuning into each other, seeing what each other needs, and then making a stricture of rules based around the collective need.
Of a sense.
So
yes.
It's objectional morality or objective based.
Well, yeah, because, I think that in the same way that nature follows certain patterns and certain quote-unquote laws or rules in every given context, the same way that morality has its own set of rules and patterns when it arises through coherent connection.
What about the morality of the beast versus the morality of the sentient? Are there different codes of conduct?
I think so. I mean, you see goodness between animals. Like, you see those videos of, the monkey that has his brother fall on the railroad tracks and he goes and saves him even though that's at risk of his own life. And so, like, in the animal kingdom, there is codes of morality that arise from connection between those beings, but it's not the same as human to human connection, because
monkey heaven is not the same as human heaven. Is that what you're trying to
yeah,
tell me?
I mean, I don't think that they have maybe as complex a morality, right? Like adultery and the nuances of lying and like that kind of thing doesn't exist because
I don't know. Whenever you come home to your cat and you smell like another cat, the cat gets mad. So what about that? Some base morality right there.
yeah, exactly.
It's like, what about my needs, eh? I'm supposed to be the only one you're feeding.
Well, yeah, but it's like so the same thing is what like the base level thing is like when a being feels itself in connection with another being, in a felt connection, in an empathic connection, or empathetic, then morality arises, where suddenly there is like a code, right? A code between beings. It's like...
So it's an agreement.
It's an agreement, but it's more like the pattern from which connection follows. It's like the blueprint for connection.
So the blueprint...
Or within connection, right?
Yeah, I guess the blueprint of the connection being you need to agree to uphold my needs and I need to agree to uphold your needs because together we are stronger than we are apart.
Yes.
It's what breeds social ties. So you could say, in essence, if you really break it down, that morality is based on the requirements that life has to support itself.
Yeah, you're right. But it's less of a like you need to do this and I need to do this, because it's like the base level of awareness almost, or like instantaneous awareness once you have that felt connection.
Yeah, so it's based in the unity factor.
Right.
In that you are using empathy, awareness, and agreement all in one to create a more stable atmosphere socially.
Right.
Thereby increasing the connection between beings.
Totally. Well, I wouldn't say that it's increasing. It's just recognition at the deepest level that you are me and I am you. And so that's where that as you say, the unity factor is. It's like when that factor is established between beings, then morality just naturally follows, because what I do to you is in essence what I do to myself. And in the same way I wouldn't stab myself in the hand, I wouldn't stab you, because we are the same. You are of me. You are the extension of me. And therefore, like, that's where the more that we are connected to everything, other beings, and then animals and plants and trees and everything around us, rocks, minerals, the rest of the earth, then the more our morality extends, right? Because there's more of us, more of what we see as us.
Yeah, which is probably why morality and spirituality or religion often get tied together, because spirit being the base essence of a sentience, or of life itself.
Yeah.
It's like the animus.
Yeah, so it's just the recognition of that,
Yeah, it's like It's like electrons becoming aware of their orbitals and then structuring how they're going to pair, in sequence instead of in chaotic patterns. I don't know. Scientists probably have my head for that one. But it's like, if atoms were aware as intelligences more than these random strings of energy, for them to decide on a specific pairing based on their needs versus just hitting each other, stealing electrons and all that stuff. What if atoms had commerce, trade? It's like, but we just didn't recognize it as such because we just couldn't communicate at that level. It's like we can create the conditions for it to happen, but we don't really see the exchange on the atom to atom level.
Well, you know what that reminds me of, just when you said that, was the work of Veda Austin with water. Because
pretend like I don't know who that is.
Yeah, because I mentioned it.
Wait, I think you've mentioned this.
Mentioned her in passing.
Is that the crystal one?
Yeah, crystallography.
So crystallography,
meaning like Masaru Emoto.
Meaning that they take pictures of water that has crystallized under certain environmental conditions, like yelling at it like a redheaded stepchild versus loving it like your own.
Yeah, kind of like the work of the Japanese scientist Masaru Emoto. He did similar things, but he took the water crystals under an electron microscope and again said loving things to some water and say negative things to another, and the crystallized water reflected the different emotion and patterns of whatever was being spoken to it. So it looked beautiful and perfectly structured, like into these beautiful hexagons when it was prayed to and given loving words, and just looked very disordered when it wasn't given loving things. When you said that the electrons could restructure like that if they recognize themselves,
just like think about like covalent versus ionic bonding.
Right. And so
you take an electron versus you're sharing it.
And so like the salted water that Veda Austin has been using, and that's really important. She speaks about it not being like distilled dead water, but actually being like spring water, and that responds to intention, prayer, so many different things. She will put these petri dishes of water in different environments and do different things, but what is really apparent is the water, I guess you could say, like starts to recognize itself, and it's connecting and showing up in these patterns, and you can see these like fern-like patterns in the spring water that she's taken pictures of, and they have beautiful imagery.
It's collecting experiences in the structure of the water.
Yeah, and it's like it's reforming connection with itself in a coherent way. So I don't know, that's just what I was reminded of when you were just talking about that, but it's like we are the macro level of that, right?
So are we trying to say that morality's based on the environment?
I think it's both internal and external, yeah.
I think it's easier when the environment is good.
For sure, because it's like you have a coherent environment, you're going to start to reflect that. So like the water, if it's in an environment that is coherent and loving, it starts to structure itself in a way that shows and reflects that connection and lovingness, and it can hold an informational pattern that reflects that. And similarly, like we will, as so much of us, what are we, 60% water, 70% water? 70% water. Our beings will reflect, and the water in us will hold an informational pattern similar to that of our environment. And that, I think, is one factor, because when we are isolated and we are fragmented from each other, that's when we get immorality, when we get harm to each other.
There's no empathy, there's no connection, there's no reason to be nice to this thing. Because it's now a thing.
Because I don't see it as me.
Yes, which is the fundamental spiritual lesson. It's like, at the very core, how big does your circle go?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just around you? Is it around your family? Is it around your community, the world, solar system, galaxy,
mm-hmm.
existence? How big do you go?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and well, I think that is an interesting thing to touch on, because I feel like so many of us right now are a little bit confused by that, because we have our phones and social media and the internet, and we try and draw that big circle around the world and like focus on every story and every bit of suffering that is happening in the world right now. And that empathic center of us is reaching out to the rest of the collective and trying to connect with it. But through this means of like doom scrolling story after story of all of the suffering, and feeling like we need to hold all of that and go about our lives, and I think that's where we're getting completely like
overloaded.
Yeah, but also like dysfunctional in our connection, because we're not really starting with self-connection, connection to each other around us, connection to our family, connection to our community. We're like trying to encompass the entire world with our awareness.
All right. So you're saying to create morality,
mm-hmm.
regardless of environment,
Mm-hmm.
we need to start with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Sensible.
The man in the mirror. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where it starts.
So how do you be moral to yourself?
So
what is that? What is self-morality?
Is self-coherence. It's having care and presence and empathy for ourselves first, which, if you know me and my work as a practitioner, that starts with tuning into our body signals and our emotions.
I was about to say, telling the truth to yourself.
Telling the truth to yourself is a part of that, because telling the truth to yourself is, am I activated? Am I in fear? Am I holding anger? Am I in collapse? Am I frozen? You know?
What do I like?
What do I like? But also like...
Do I allow myself to do what I like?
Yeah.
Does what I like help me? And then,
mm-hmm.
after that, does it help others?
That's like the top-down approach, the kind of mind, mental experience is like, what do I like? Am I pursuing what I like? But then the bottom up.
Do I fight myself, or am I in coherence?
Well, that
meaning harmony.
Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? To me, that means, am I, like, if you say, am I fighting myself? Am I harboring anger and grief and fear, and am I actually deeply activated, meaning like I'm emotionally in a state of turmoil and I'm just pushing it down?
So not being aware of it intentionally.
Not being aware of it, numbing to it, using other things to numb those emotional experiences or signals that your body is giving you, perhaps even through physical symptoms that are coming up as certain things. And then therefore, you're not living in truth. You're not living in truth with yourself. And that's where it starts, because coherence comes from like going into those experiences and being present to them and having the care and the discipline to look into all of that, having a coherent, like, communication with all of those parts of you that might have been neglected. And therefore, that is what creates the capacity to do that for other people. To be, when we talk about empathy, what are we really talking about? It's having that presence that deep for other people.
Can the observer empathize with the patterns that you've already observed? Can your present empathize with your past?
Right. Right. And
ooh, that needs to be a t-shirt.
I would wear it. I'd wear it to the supermarket. But yeah, that is the thing, because we, again, like, we can get very heady about this thing about being the observer and like, you know, meditation and stuff. What are you really doing? You're not just like, kind of, you know, passively just, you know, being an observer. You're like, when I think of being the observer, it's almost like being a curious observer. I think that's like the adjective that needs to be in front of observer, because people often think like, oh, I'm just observing, like I've closed my eyes and I'm hearing all the noises and I'm just observing. But I think, and maybe this is just because we are who we are in the modern day, and we have buried so much stuff deep down, that the observer that we need to be is the curious observer that's going to go deeper than just, oh yeah, I'm just passively in the present. I'm actually like tuning in a more focused way to my body and to the patterns that have been perhaps going on unconsciously without me realizing, like the tension that's being held in my feet, or the pit of my stomach feeling that I've been ignoring for a decade. You know, it's like those things that we can just be. We have to be a little bit more curious and investigative about, because they have been just going on, you know, unobserved for so long.
Yeah, it's like, I think a good strategy to become what you call the curious observer is to cut yourself off temporarily from everything around you so that you can work on yourself. A lot of times in life, I've noticed that when somebody gets too full of all the bullshits, oftentimes they will become so, what we call toxic, or they will become so, like, they'll turn inward, become sullen, they'll become isolated in whatever manner that it arises. But bottom line is, reality isolates you, i.e. you isolate you, and reality forms that around you so that you can look inside and get in touch with all of the things that you have said no to, that you're not into coherence with, all the lies that you've told yourself, all the facades that you've built for yourself to make yourself seem like somebody that you're not so that others accept you. And, you know, it's like when it comes down to it, it's like you need to rebuild the strength of the connection to the source of you. You know, to that, what we call the spirit, the animus, the in the spirit of. It's like, who am I? What is the spirit of me? You know, what do I do? Why am I here? You know, those base questions. And then once you get that built, it's like you start to become curious about life, because it's like you're good inside. You know, it's like you've built the framework inside. You've asked the questions that need to be asked. And you've built your own morality, like, based on that. And morality meaning the behaviors that you employ that support you most innately.
So it's care, self.
Care.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, are you feeding yourself? Are you exercising? Are you doing the things that move the animus? You know, are you doing like, if you're a musician, it's like countless musicians, including myself, have run up into the problem of, oh, well, how do I take care of myself? How do I take care of my family? How do I feed my family on the music alone? You know, and you eventually are forced to do something that you don't want to do, and you will completely put the music to the wayside, and then the soul starts to die. The soul animus, like the animus of you, the thing that makes you happy, you know, the thing that you're built to do, starts to rot inside you because you're not using it. And so it's regressing, but also it's like you're rotting with it. And eventually that leads to massive amounts of depression and feeling lost, dissociation. And once you start to reach into those areas, going against what we call morality socially becomes much more easier. Because it's like you're not forming the structure for yourself to be supportive, and therefore cannot project it for others.
Yeah, project that care and that presence.
Yeah.
Because, it's like, and I think that this is what we're really missing from learning about ourselves and learning how to be in community and communion, is how deeply we need to go with ourselves first. And that's why, I was going back to that point that I was talking about, that social media and the news and stories that we can so easily access have hijacked that, because we're trying to reach out to the entire world and connect to all the stories and sufferings without having a strong ground of who we are and how we take care of ourselves and how we be present, deeply present, like on the level that you're saying, on the soul level, to who we are and what we're about and what animates our life, what is our aliveness, what brings us here, what keeps us here. Like, all of that is our own level of care. It's the depth of just being present to ourselves. And that's not selfish. I think then we're stuck in a false morality that says, well, that's selfish. You're not caring about the world. You're not taking care of all the people that are suffering in the world. And who are you to just not focus on that for a minute? And
we'll bring it back one step. It's like, say, a family. You know, it's like family have things that are going on all the time. They need things. But it's like, sometimes when you're going through hardship, you have to take a step back, and your family and friends may not understand that. They're saying you're being selfish, all the things that you just said. But I want to make this more personal, you know, because it's like when, like, your work, your job, I don't know, like your bigger group of friends, oh, well, he's not doing that. Or if you're like a well-known person in the news, the media, public opinion, oh, well, he's not doing that. You can kind of just brush that off. But it's like family, friends, that kind of thing. It's like communicating with them, like, look, I'm going through something, and I don't have the capacity to be there in this way because I am not in coherence for myself.
yeah.
It's like, and I need to take a step back so that I can move forward again. And it's like, that's something that is, it's a difficult move, but it's a very necessary one. It's like our morality is a structure internally, like of will, thought, and emotion. It's like all mixing together to create a support structure for ourselves. And it's like, let's take like some of the basic things. It's like, don't steal, don't kill, like, don't I don't know, what's another one? Don't cheat, don't
lie.
Don't lie. It's like, what do all these have in common?
They all cause harm.
They all cause harm, but what do?
They cause disconnection.
They disrupt the connection, You're right.
Yeah.
So it's like internally, if you're not being true to yourself, if you're lying to yourself every day, and you're not taking the chances that you need to take to be who you are, if you keep suppressing that, the internal structure is going to fail.
Yeah.
It's like you're not going to give yourself that. You're going to come out of coherence. Your mind and your heart are no longer going to be able to sync. It's like, did you know that the mind and the heart actually sync on an energetic level, the frequencies of the mind and the heart?
Are you talking about the brain?
The brain, yeah. Sorry.
The
brain and the heart.
The mind could be the heart mind too.
Could be. Or the gut.
Or the gut mind.
But the brain and the heart sync.
Mm-hmm.
Like the wavelengths that they produce, the energy frequencies that they produce actually can come into sync. And that's when you do your best work, your best thinking, your best feeling. When you stop paying attention to yourself, you stop supporting yourself, you start like living for others, you start giving too much and not taking care of yourself enough, or you start engaging with people that do not live up to the same level of energy expenditure that you give them. Like basically they're not giving you what you're giving them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you start to do these kinds of things, your internal morality, your self-worth, all of these things go offline. And it's like, to start this process, you need to choose, you need to exercise a core amount of willpower to decide to be there for yourself so that you can then be there for others. It's like I don't know, I guess there needs to be a reasoning for it. One of my questions for you is, do you believe that this is something that you choose, or it's something innate to living beings?
I think it is something innate. I think, as I said, it's something that only arises when connection, real connection, and when, all the things I've said about coherence, when coherence is present. Without those things, it doesn't arise. And therefore, as someone who studied philosophy, I studied philosophy at university, and you go through like the rigmarole of like philosophers and ethical philosophy and who's got the best moral philosophical theory, and they're all based on some form of instructional morality, like whether you want to go Kant or Hobbes or utilitarianism or whatever you want to form of morality. They're all talking about connection isn't reliable, and so therefore we need some sort of morality based on instruction. I think that's where they get it all wrong, and that's where I found myself so uncomfortable studying a lot of Western philosophy, because they're not taking into account that a lot of the things that we are discussing philosophically require consciousness in the mix. Like, require you to have an awareness of what how spirit moves and how nature moves, and debating them logically will just lead to some sort of reductionist viewpoint of philosophy, and it doesn't really.
So you're saying it needs to be felt.
So it's morality requires felt connection, and it doesn't come about other than that. And any form of it that does come about is either one that promises reward or punishes for not doing it, or relies on rules or compliance in some way, and that therefore it's not morality, it's just a set of rules. It comes from a being who feels in connection rather than feeling isolated, that doesn't feel abstracted or objectified from others, or doesn't objectify and abstract other beings. And the more this happens, like, the more they abstract themselves and others, the more that they get away from what morality is. So it's really when this feeling of separation dissolves. So it is innate, but it's only innate when you feel that separation between yourself and another has dissolved, which is quite a high standard in society right now, because look at us, we are so deeply separated on some levels.
Well, the advent of the computer has definitely changed how we interact, and within 2 generations it's done that.
Yeah, and so we have, like, very clearly, like, a crisis of morality and people trying to... Well, what has happened is actually we still feel like there is some level of morality, but what we have isn't morality. Because what we do have is, like, this false morality, and there's some brilliant people explaining this.
Before you go on, what do you mean by false morality?
I mean, well, this is kind of where I was going, is that Machiavelli is another...
Machiavelli.
is, when we look at the Machiavellian philosophy, it's one that explained this idea of as an individual, how you can progress socially and in society, and one of the ideas is of basically not playing by the rules of everyone's game, but creating your own rules and allowing everybody to, or kind of showing everyone up in not playing by your rules, and therefore basically making them feel like they aren't playing the right rules and they're...
Oh, you are the decider of things.
Yeah.
And so therefore they aren't moral because they aren't going along with what you think is right.
Exactly. And we have
Have you ever read the definition of morality? The Webster?
No, I haven't.
So, principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong, or good and bad behavior, which is a subjective thing.
Well, that...
Right, wrong, good, bad. Now, definition of good in the Webster: to be desired or approved of.
Well, there you go. And that's the kind of Machiavellian idea, is that...
I don't approve of this, therefore it is bad.
Right. Well, therefore, it's like the rules can change. The what's it? The parameters for goodness can always be moved. Like around whatever you want it to be. And so we think that really what's happening in society is like we have some morality. We don't. We have a false structure of morality, and it's constantly changing depending on what the deciders say it is. And that...
So what makes a decider a decider?
Well, in this society, it's governments. It's whoever everybody's looking to.
Basically, whoever can kill you.
Yes, it's
which is insanely ironic.
Right, it's whoever's enforcing it through force, yes.
Through force! Right. I say what's good and bad, or else.
Yeah, or, and like, or through the threat of force, which is more often what it is when we go into law and law of commerce and things like that. A lot of it is a threat in a system that we've agreed to play in. But this system does not have morality. This system has a set of rules that are appearing to be morality.
So what is correct morality?
Well, correct morality, as I said, doesn't require compliance.
Doesn't require compliance.
No, because it arises, and it always arises, through felt connection.
Through felt connection.
Through relational coherence.
But what if you're 2 murderers and you're connecting over murder?
Then it's not felt connection.
How do you know? I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it.
And you bring up a good point. But and that's important because, again, you know, what is felt connection? And in the sense of two murderers connecting over murder, it is not connection, because there's a sense of superiority, objectifying whoever's going to be murdered, like contempt. That is all the opposite.
What if you're high-fiving after a battle because these baddies came in and were trying to take your crops? And you're like, yeah, buddy, we showed them.
Well, okay, so that, you know, we're going into now the complexity of what morality brings up, which is why you can't just have a set of principles instructing how people should be, or like why you can't just universalize morality as a set of principles, like Kantian ethics can't try to universalize everything, like do not ever lie, like do not ever kill, because you have situations in which, yeah, if you're in like a situation where there's land being stolen and things like that, then you might be responding in a way that makes sure that your land and your property is kept yours. Like in a situation like that, it is debatable what is the action to take. When it comes to the other situation that you described of the two murderers connecting over murder, again, it's looking at, well, in that situation, the felt connection isn't there, coherence isn't there, because coherence would say, inherently, if I'm connected to myself, I'm not going to harm another, because I'm not going to harm myself, and therefore another is like myself, it is myself, and therefore I'm not going to harm them.
So fundamental outlook is the underpinning principle here. It's like you have to see everything as a part of you.
Yeah, and
so you have to obtain the God mind.
Yes. Which is
without becoming egocentric.
Well, that is
tall order.
Well, it's, you know, if you look at people like the Kogi people, for instance.
The Kogi?
The Kogis.
The Kogis.
Are a tribe in South America.
I see.
They are
not the Corgi people, but the Kogi people.
The Kogi people. And we should watch a documentary on them. They're amazing in the way that they live their life, and you can see how deeply connected, like a lot of indigenous groups, are to their land and to the nature that exists around them, the animals, the plants, and that sense of custodianship towards those things. It is like serving a part of yourself, to serve the animals, to serve the people, to serve each other, and to maintain a sense of interdependency with all of the things that that you're sharing your existence with in this realm. And so if action arises from that, it looks very, very different to how we're living. It looks a lot more like how the Kogi people are living. And I think that is where we are moving towards. And
because awareness is rising.
Because awareness is rising, and that sense of connection to all things, and the realization that interdependency is also the only way we can survive, really, if we're going to survive long term.
So define it. Not independent, but interdependent.
Yeah. So instead of seeing yourself as the only thing that needs taking care of and being of service to and maintaining and surviving, you see that everything around you also requires you require it to survive with you, and it requires you to survive. Mm. So it's like there's this shared survival, basically, experience happening, and you can either deny it and live as much as you can without it, but you will be infinitely better with it and maintaining it and taking care of it.
How do you know our lives are so short?
because we
Relativistically, I mean, to a cricket, we're immortal, but, go on.
Well, we use and are maintained by it every day. The sun, the earth, gives us abundance every single day. And so when we don't turn to it, what happens? We notice we are a lot more worse off. There's more disease, more suffering.
Yeah, I've been noticing a lot of clouds lately. Mm-hmm. Not enough sunlight.
I wonder why.
And I definitely feel sadder after spending a couple of months in England during the wintertime. You definitely feel it.
Yep.
But interdependence, like, basically, how do we know that things are going to be better? Like, how are we going to be better off if we all draw our circles a little bit larger each day?
Well, I mean, we can also talk about going back to the coherent patterns of water. If you need to look at an example so clearly, look at the water. And you can do this experiment at home by yourself. Like, if you have a glass container, it doesn't need to be a petri dish, it can be an oven dish. Say lovely things to it. Stick it in the freezer for 5 minutes or however long it takes just to freeze that top layer. Take it out of the freezer and look at the water. Do the same with a dish and say mean things to it. And and just see. Because you realize after that there is this pattern of nature and of us and everything that involves water.
There's a pattern of harmony and there's a pattern of dissonance.
And the body loves order. It creates coherent frequencies. And this is, Eileen McCusick talks about this. These coherent frequencies entrain weaker or chaotic frequencies. That means that if you have a bunch of structured bodies of water and you stuck them around each other, and even Veda Austin did this, she had an egg that was a free range. She had free range eggs, and then she had one caged egg, so an egg that had been developed in a factory farm where like the chickens just are under artificial light and they're all close together and stuff. And she this experiment, I'm not going to be very clear about exactly what she did here, but it was something like she had this egg and she looked at the structure of the pattern of the water of the egg, and it was all chaotic. But then she stuck it in, surrounded by free-range eggs and their water. And then it actually entrained the structure of water of the caged egg to become more coherent and more patterned. So basically it entrained the weaker chaotic frequency to become more coherent and harmonious. And that is like what all of us can do as beings. And the body loves order and nature loves order. We see nature ordered in patterns and frequencies and structure. And these frequencies like inform each other, and what arises from that is more structure, more beauty, more patterns, more connection. And so we're either doing that or we're isolating and becoming more chaotic and therefore more fragmented, more separated from that.
Yeah, it's like building a building.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were to theoretically just take a plank of wood and it's like, and you have to build, a skyscraper. It's like, or a steel beam. It's like, and you only stacked like steel beams on top of each other all the way up. It's like you'd never reach the height that you needed to because you're not creating cross linkages. And so it's like if you want to build higher, you have to build across.
Right.
You have to connect to the girders and the beams around you in order to keep building higher. But the caveat there is you have to choose which direction you're going with all of those people. And when you choose the direction you're going, then you all can connect and entrain in coherence to each other.
Yeah.
But you need to create the agreement, and you need to be aware of your responsibilities when acting as such.
Yeah.
So as a society, I think what is going on right now is we don't know where we're going. We don't know why we're doing all this. It's like we're making a bunch, like not a bunch, we're making a fraction of the populace hyper wealthy, and everybody else is just kind of acting as staff. That was actually a meme I saw the other day. I was like, that's pretty good. It's like Earth is a 5-star resort for a little group of people.
Yeah.
But the rest of us are just kind of waiting on that. But, you know, it's like we need to be more focused in what we want, what we desire, where do we want to go, and why. That needs to be a conversation. We have all of these communication tools, and nobody's using them for that.
Yeah, well, it's like...
Well, I shouldn't say nobody, but it's like there needs to be a massive push into that direction where we're like, what are we doing? Because that's like, that should be government, but government is basically now this hollow shell of a thing where they're just using it as a tool to benefit a very small group of the populace.
Yeah.
It's like completely, gutting it of its original intent. So we have to have it come to deity or come to morality meeting and, figure this out again, because it's just something that we just got to do periodically. And I think that the call has gone out, and we all need to really start thinking about this and communicating to each other. What do we want? Where are we going? And why are we doing that? And I think that's something that we will talk about in our next episode of Love and Knowledge. Thank you, folks, for being here, and we will see you in the next one.
Thank you.